Hello and welcome back to the Food Freedom with
Becca.
and Abby podcast. We hope you're well. We have got a special guest here today, Daniel, who will be joining us and talking about things to do with the new year, and who he is and stuff as well. So before we get into it, do we want to do our three positives of the week as well?
Yes. Shall I start this time?
Go for it.
So my positives for this week is that we had our end of year Zoom call, which unfortunately you couldn't make, but for the rest of the girls and our clients, which was really nice. We did a Christmas quiz. I learnt that half of our group are actually Scrooges and don't like Christmas, which was very difficult. And Mum was on the call, Daniel, so she was sat there going, "I know all the answers," and everyone was like, "Ugh, Karen."
Oh man, yeah, that was fun.
So that's one. My second one is puppy training again. Like, Nutella's getting genuinely so smart at puppy training, and it's really nice. Like, we even took her for a walk the other day and let her. She had the lead on, but we let go of the lead, and she ran towards Mum Chill, which was really nice. And my third one would be, although it is the new year now, the time we're recording this is that I'm really excited for Christmas because I'm going to get to see everyone this week. So that makes me happy.
Oh, you've done the jinx.
I'm sorry.
No, you've done the me. Just for context for your listeners, I was saying just before we logged on that the last time I was on the podcast and was predicting what Christmas would bring, the opposite happened and I got COVID and saw no one for 10 days. So that won't happen to you. I'm sure you'll be fine.
Thank you. Now you've doomed me forever.
Lovely. So I'll go next.
Yes.
So my three positives would be that even though I've been very ill the past week, I've still managed to get my step count in, which I'm really happy with.
Right.
The second one would be that I drove in London for the first time, and oh my God, it is so scary.
Uh-huh.
But I managed it and I didn't crash, so I'm very proud of that.
That's always a win.
That's always a win. And my third one would be that I finished all my Christmas shopping. Which
Just
I'm
in time.
Just in time, because it's so stressful.
Nice. Daniel.
Beautiful. Okay. So one is so weirdly this year I've gotten really into candles. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but there's something like I don't know, it's just homely.
It's your age.
Probably my age. And just to add on that even more, I bought a candle today that smells like it's my favorite smell I've found so far, which is peony and leather. So I feel like if anything, that really is like probably beginning to show my age at this point.
You're peaking at life, Daniel. You're peaking.
I know, 31 and it's already downhill. So that's one. I guess another one is following Abby's train is I've only got 2 presents left to buy this year for people. So I'm not quite done yet. But I'm getting close. And number 3 is I have, weirdly enough, kind of just in time, I guess, for this podcast, been doing lots of planning and looking forward to things that I'm doing next year and getting excited about stuff. And the fact that I've actually been able to take the time to do the planning this year, because like I won't go into all the specifics because it's a very long story, but last year was basically just a mad rush to the finish. I also got COVID. And so like I wasn't able to start planning the year until about February. So it's quite nice to start looking at doing that and seeing what I'm doing for the year ahead.
Nice. So for any of you that don't know, Daniel is my brother. Fortunately, unfortunately, bit changes.
Wow. I'm
kidding.
The people watching on YouTube, if I do this, I've got a Christmas hat. So
that's true. And if you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out.
Go watch on YouTube.
Yes. But yes, basically the reason that we have asked Daniel on is because he is someone that is annoyingly good at the way you view the world. Like if ever I have any problems, I always go to him because he is someone that will sit on the fence, look at it from an outside perspective and just help you think about things realistically, which is what we want to do with our clients, with you guys, with helping everyone to understand what goals you have and how to achieve them. So
I've got that recorded now. Thank you.
So Daniel, do you want to just introduce yourself a bit and what you do, what like your job and things like that?
Yeah, I am a cosmic conglomerate of stardust.
Yep.
There you go. No, I am. So yeah, I'm Daniel Willcocks. I am Becky's brother. I am also a full-time author. I am a business owner. We kind of call it in the author space an authorpreneur because I offer author services and also help people specifically with the business of living as an author. So while I have a lot of knowledge in how to write books, how to publish books, I've got a book on how to publish books and things for people that are interested. Most of where my focus is helping people primarily with mindset, understanding their lives and how they can fit into, or how they can fit their creativity into what they do. And just it sounds a bit woo-woo, but one of the things that I really strive to do is there's a moment where people return to creativity, or they find kind of like an inertia and momentum with what they do, and a fire lights up in their eyes. And I love that moment where you can see people suddenly getting hungry for a thing that they've lost or thought they couldn't do. Because what is all too common a story, especially in creativity just generally, is a teacher going, you'll never be able to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then 20, 30, 40 years later, they're like, I kind of want to do this. And then they find that they can. And they're like, screw you, Mr. Davidson. And they go on from there. So that's kind of what I do. I talk a lot, and I also run a podcast. So there we go.
And what is your podcast for anyone that wants to listen to it?
The Activated Authors Podcast. So it's me and Sam Frost, who I believe has been a guest on here as well. Mm-hmm. And we kind of talk all things authorship. And then I also have episodes where we're bringing guests and we talk to people all across the industry. So kind of, there you go. I kind of pushed you into doing a podcast. You're welcome.
You did. So it's safe to say you're quite a busy person.
Yeah, I'm trying to move away from that moniker and go more for productive. Like this year's all about slowing down for me, but I'm sure we can get onto that.
Yes. But before we get into like the proper questions, one thing I wanted to touch on, which you mentioned earlier, is Christmas with you. And as you are such a busy person, and Abby does exactly the same, and we've mentioned this on a previous episode, that when you are such a busy person and you live life at full blast all the time, when Christmas comes and you stop, what happens to your body?
I feel like this is a very leading question. You crash. So yeah, I mean, last year was the first time it didn't happen to me because I had COVID. But yeah, for the last sort of 5 or 6 years, like I have been running very, very hard, which is kind of how I've come to learn and develop and kind of understand a lot of this stuff. And so yeah, like if you run at things full pelt, if you give everything all the time, you get to Christmas all excited to see your family. And then I have had Christmases where I've just been basically sofa bound for 10 to 14 days because my body's recovering from the ridiculousness that I put it through. I don't say that in any way to like hold a badge of honor or anything else, because it's not healthy, it's not good. Like I know now how to do things better, but yeah, it's rough. I mean, how long have you been doing that, Abby? How many years has that happened to you?
As long as I like, oh my god, a fair few years. Like I'd say around like 6, 7 going on maybe. I've always pardon.
Is it going to happen this year?
I hope not. I've already got it. I feel like
I'm
having it now. I've been like this for a week already, and I'm like, I'm over it now. Yeah. I want it gone.
But I mean, it's a step in the right direction, I guess.
At least by Christmas it should be gone, and then you won't be that person this year.
Exactly. I'm like, it can't get worse than this. So
yeah,
it's only going to go up.
Oh, bless you coming on the podcast anyway, though.
I'll just power through it. This is why
that's why I got you into this mess. I'm kidding.
But yes, I need tips on slowing down because I do the same thing. I go full pout, and then the weekend between Christmas and New Year's, I just I'm bedbound. Yeah,
there's got to be a name for it. There's got to be some kind of term for it.
Yeah, there's enough people that do it. Yeah. Okay, so now we've touched on that subject. So as an author and through your experiences, Daniel, how important would you say eating well and moving your body is within what you do?
It's as equal as anything that you do, really. I mean, it's I think it's really misunderstood just how important movement and the right nutrition is, especially when you're in very sedentary roles. And the reason that I find it very annoying, and speaking from my own experience, is very misunderstood, is because what I've come to learn, especially lately, is there are a lot of very universal, easy truths for how people can live a better life. But because we're beating around the head of them so often, we just dismiss them as like just cliches and things that people say. So like, how important is it to exercise? Like fundamentally important. How easy is it to how important is it to eat right? fundamentally important. How fundamental is it to rest? How fundamental is it to like have periods where you get busy? Like fundamentally important. But we're beating around the head with the fact that they're important, and so we just go like, oh, we'll ignore that because there's got to be some like fad or some quicker way to do it. Like if I just like, if I elevate my legs a little bit, that'll, I don't know, burn calories or do something. Like if I kind of like squeeze my butt cheeks when I'm on the toilet, that's going to burn calories. That's like it's not enough. And you know, I've been in. So when I was at university, I ran the Parkour Free Running Society for 2.5 years. And then coached free running. So I was very, very active. I lived a very active life, coaching several times a week. I was, you know, running, I was doing martial arts, I was doing lots of different things. And so my body really hasn't ever been in better shape than it was then. And then I get into my first sort of main full-time job when I was 23, 24. And sitting in an office, and within 6 months I'd put on a stone because, you know, my body's not moving, and my body that's used to doing all of this stuff now isn't. And so over time, that compounds, that starts to grow, and you start to feel really, really sluggish, which then makes it harder to do more exercise or to walk more. So you walk less, and it kind of cycles. But like, if you're not moving, you're not, how am I trying to say it? So if you're not moving, you're not giving your body its full, I guess, grasp, its full potential to do the thing that it needs to be doing. And I know for myself, if I've been sat down for too long, I just get very, very sluggish. So I have specifically this year really, really harnessed the power of just walks. And again, like when someone says to you, I'll just go for a walk, it sounds like such simple advice, but the simple advice is often the best because it's the most universal and easy to implement. And so if I'm ever feeling foggy, if I'm ever struggling, if I'm ever like, oh, I've just been staring at a screen for half an hour, I'll go for a walk. And weirdly, if I walk for 30 to 60 minutes, I come back and my mind has been working and doing things over time. Like it's fixed a problem, it's done X, Y, Z. And so it's kind of combining a combination of all of these things just to make you more productive, make you think more, and just to give yourself a chance to get your body working.
It helps you with your creativity as well for writing, doesn't it? When you go for walks and stuff.
Oh, it's massive. I'm most creative when I'm not trying to be creative.
Yeah.
And I think that's a pretty universal truth. Like most creatives tend to have the best ideas when they're walking, when they're driving, or when they're in the shower. Annoyingly, like places where you're probably not going to have a notepad.
Yeah.
Like I've been driving before, and I've, you know, turned on sort of voice notes and kind of very quickly spat things to my notepad because I'm like, I want to capture this idea. Obviously, I want to do it safely. But yeah, often that, I don't know what it is. You know, it's been a thing that's been going on through history for years. Like, I'm gonna forget who it is, but it's either Charles Dickens or Charles Darwin famously went for sort of 3-4 mile walks around his house every day, sort of on schedule.
Around his house?
Yeah, it's massive, like acre plots. Like, yeah, not just like
up and down the stairs,
digging a hole with his own footsteps. But yeah, just that general movement. And again, like if you're driving 5 minutes to work, 2-3 minutes to work every day, like walk it, because that extra time, although it feels quicker to get in the car, which it's probably not because traffic and it'll probably do your head in, like being stuck behind people, just walking or just doing like a quick walk to the shops or something, like it really does calm you down. It really does kind of like quiet your brain. And one of the things that I found was when I was working in that first full-time job, I was about 20-25 minute push bike journey away from work. And so I started cycling to and from work, and my days just got a whole lot more energetic, and I just had more creativity when I was on the job, which is useful because I worked in marketing. And then there were times when as well I would not listen to music, I would not listen to podcasts or audiobooks or anything, just because that quiet for that 20-25 minutes, again, like quiet is really underestimated in a world now that is so noisy and so full of like Netflix at our fingers, phones at our fingertips, like video games, like everything, every bit of entertainment is there for you. And again, kind of coming back, I guess this is also one of the positives. So this week is over the weekend and sort of today, I've just uninstalled all social medias off my phone. I go through these phases. It's a whole big thing. We don't have to go into it. But I have felt a pressure and a weight lift in like the 3 days that I've not been on social media. And it might be in some way harmful to some of my business stuff, but at the same time, like the benefits of not being on it are definitely outweighing the disadvantages of being on it. So a whole big circle of stuff there, but yeah, move, people.
You struggle with that as well, don't you, Abby? Like you like going for walks and moving your body that way.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to like what you said about starting going into a full-time job. Like I've recently changed jobs, one from where I was on my feet all the time to now where I am sat down a lot, and the change and just my step count and stuff like that is ridiculous, like the change. And yeah, I found it really hard to kind of have to proactively take myself on walks rather than just being able to get them. And I can tell, like, mentally as well, like I know that I'm not getting like the endorphin rush or anything like that from being outside or just being on my feet and just being active. And it makes you feel more sluggish.
Mhm.
And it like you said, it's such a small thing that people take for granted, but it honestly does make such a difference. Like, anyone that wants to start on a fitness journey or just feel a bit better, just take yourself on a 10-minute walk like twice a day, because it will help so much. And it's only like 5% of your day or something like that, and it will help you so much.
And don't
Yeah.
use the weather as an excuse. It is cold, it is winter, especially if you're in England. But
Yep.
like, I personally really like walking when it's really cold, because it's fresh air, like really fresh air. But it just, I don't know, I find it different to walking when it's warm.
I like it when it's raining. I'll take the dog
Yeah.
out for a walk when it's raining, just because like no one else is around, so you can just go wherever
That's
you want
true.
to. But yeah, I mean, there's also when people think about getting more active and doing more, the immediate thought is, well, I must join a gym, and that's kind of like the go-to. And obviously, like, putting aside the fact that most people don't know what to do in the gym or how to exercise, which isn't a judgment, like it's sort of a lack of education for many people. And I'm definitely not perfect. Like, I get people to design things for me, and then I kind of like just try for a few months. But that's very much the go-to. That's the image people see when it's like being active. And what you also forget is that there is also a mental journey between your home and getting you to the gym, let alone the physical journey of often, like, you know, like for me, it's a 10-minute bike ride to the gym, or weirdly a 10-minute car drive. Don't ask why, it's a very complicated route. But you know, that 10 minutes itself, although it seems small, is a mental block. Like, I can be at home just going like, oh, I don't want to, like, it's 10 minutes away, rather than, you know, throw just some weights on the floor. But if you're not doing any exercise and you want to get more active and you're not walking or like doing something just slightly moving, like I think we might have touched on it slightly before we started recording, but like when I came on here before talking about those sort of incremental changes, that's what you got to start doing. Like, what is your baseline and what is the next easiest step up? And take it from there, like, rather than these big leaps into, right, now I'm going to be a pro athlete swimmer in a 50-meter pool.
Yeah. And it's finding the things you enjoy as well. Like, one of my friends, she used to go to the gym a lot and really enjoyed it. And now her form of exercise is just using the Wii Ring Fit thing. And she loves it. Like, on days she doesn't want to go to the gym, she does that. And it's like, okay, it's not written down as like that is a form of exercise and that's going to make you muscly and strong, but it helps her mentally, it moves her body, like it does all the things exercise is meant to do. It isn't necessarily that you have to go to the gym and lift weights, or you have to be a runner, or you have to do whatever. Like, you did parkour, which is something that not a lot of people did, but you loved it. And like Abby did rowing, which again is a sport, but not a lot of people do it because it's not like the typical thing to get you fit and healthy.
Nothing is a typical thing. The gym isn't a typical thing. You're going to a building full of random sweaty people and just lifting random weights. That's not a normal, natural thing that people once did years and years ago. That's a very modern, new thing. And for whatever reason, it's now just taking it over as like the thing to do. But that's what we've got to remember is like you say, you can just do it at home. You can just like walk up and down the stairs. You can just pick up your dog and do some press ups. I don't know, like just anything that is physically challenging your body in some way is exercise. And so like if you want to do home circuits, like I know a lot of friends that do lots of sort of yoga tutorials and things on YouTube, and just follow those. And like yoga itself is fantastic for core and just general strength and you know, flexibility. And it doesn't all have to be just pumping iron and getting stacked. Like to feel good, you just need to challenge your body. Like so much of what makes you feel good in life is progression, and that could be like physical progression, mental progression, whatever it is. Knowing that you're moving forward is one of the things that stimulates happiness. So if you know that you're kind of challenging yourself, just like, I don't know, if you've never done a press up, work towards doing a press up. Wow, I've done a press up. Cool. Now do 2. Now do 3. Now work to 10. Like, stop when you start getting arms the size of like, I don't know, like
can't fit through the door.
Like, yeah. But like all these little incremental bits of progress and just challenging yourself is going to make you ultimately happier in the long run and more energetic. And the thing that I like that you said there, and I realize I talk a lot, it's the fact that your friend did the Wii Fit thing because it was fun.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did during lockdown a lot was play Beat Saber with friends, which is, people that don't know, it's a virtual reality game of like lightsabers, and it's do it to music.
Really fun.
Yeah. And one of the things that really changed my mindset on going to the gym, and I've gotten back into my habit of it sort of about 3 or 4 months ago now, was listening to a podcast, and I can't remember who it was, which I feel really bad for now, but they were basically talking about this idea of lots of people go to the gym, and it's not a conscious thing, but they go to the gym as a punishment for the fact that they've let themselves get into a physical state that they're unhappy with. Whereas what it should be, and what the gym truly is, or supplement gym with any form of exercise, is a means to an end of you becoming happy and you feeling energetic. Like, I now go to the gym because I know that through doing this, it's going to help the rest of my day go well.
Yeah.
And it's going to help me feel more energetic. And so I focus more on that end result rather than looking at like what is currently squishy on my body and going like, oh, I hate this, I must work out hard. And the other thing as well is, because of that attitude, I lowered all of my weights. So I wasn't straining and hurting myself, to the point that I'm now kind of following a regime that is manageable, and it's growing and it's getting stronger, but I'm no longer like almost beating myself up just to try and like hit some kind of like arbitrary weight goal. So try and find a way to make it fun, and just remember that it's, in the long run, like if you had the choice between feeling sluggish and crap or feeling energetic and healthy, just black and white, what would you choose?
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Why would you?
Yeah. But another thing is, like, some of my clients, like, we get a lot of mums that sign up that have obviously put on weight through having kids and things, and their goals, or like even nans and stuff, their goals are just that they want to be able to chase after their grandkids and not get out of breath. Like, that is a form of activity as well. People underestimate just playing with your kids, like playing a game of football with your son or dancing with whoever. Like at Christmas, I'm looking forward to playing with Bailey, your son.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's different and it's nice and it's quality time with them. It's good for you mentally, and you're moving your body. Like, you go out on Pokemon hunts and all sorts with him. That gets him out. You're walking, you're doing things together. Like, all of those things are exercise, and they're all good for your body.
So one of the things I love to about parkour is, I didn't realize until I started coaching parkour how unaware of people's physical limitations that people were. So even just this idea of vaulting over a fence or just shimmying over a fence, like the actual mechanics of that movement are incredibly simple, but because no one's ever sort of challenged themselves or tried anything like that, even though it's just a small movement and it could help with other things in life, excuse me, people just are very, very unaware of their own limitations, or limitations.
There's like box jumps in the gym. Like, you do. Are you good at box jumps, Abby?
I have done them. I don't anymore because I have dodgy hips and dodgy knees, so I try not to do them because of impact. But oh my God, the few times I've done them.
But I think that is like a mental challenge. You look at this block and you think, I can't jump up there. Like, everyone starts like that. And then I went to a PT session with Daniel, and like the trainer would just kept putting weights and things on it to make it taller, because you don't have that mental block. Like, you trust that your body can do it, and it's just like,
I've taught my body to do it.
Yeah, it's knowing what your limitations are, and
it's and kind of where so much of it springs from. It's just progression. So again, like, I started off, and I mean, I did start when I was 14, 15, but I started off on very, very tiny things. And then over time, like, that increased. And then I went to university and we went into a gymnastics gym. And obviously with the safety of everything being squishy, you can go higher and higher. And you just get to a point where mentally you know what you're more aware of what you can and can't do. And a little side story that kind of like illustrates this point massively, which is probably one of the turning points of this in my life, was so when I first started doing parkour, I was 14. And what I will add as well is, like, replace parkour with like any challenge that you have, because so much of it genuinely is in your head. Think of the things that you weren't once able to do that you now can, whether that's cooking or cleaning or painting or whatever that is. But I started when I was sort of 14, 15, and a friend of mine, Rye, Becky will know him, took me to, it was a third story of a car park, and it was right on the edge where sort of railings are. And there was a gap that was probably about 8 foot across, with a little bit of a drop that was probably about another 4 foot across. And then the drop was about 30 foot. And it was from the car park to the roof. And there was some graffiti on the side that said Talus. And so this place was called the Talus Gap. And my friend said to me, oh, do you know that, you know, some people have jumped that? And I looked at it and I went, mate, that's stupid. That is ridiculous. Like, it was high, and when you watch films and you have that kind of like contra zoom cannon thing of like, and everything warps, I was like, no, that's ridiculous. Fast forward a year later, and I have been practicing and just jumping on lots of small different things and doing bits and pieces, and I'm walking past the same place with the same guy 1 year later, and just as a fanciful thing, I just stepped over and I looked at it. I was like, the gap has shrunk. it hadn't, but genuinely physically, like in my head, this thing had shrunk. And so I got up on that ledge and I jumped it. Like, was it scary? Like, absolutely. But I knew at that point what I was capable of. And so I did. And everything really in life has kind of sprung from that moment of like, if something seems harder, if I'm new to something, or like, whether it's bringing it back to like nutrition or exercise or any of that stuff, like just because you don't know about it now doesn't mean there's not a version of you that in 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years time will understand so much more and will be so much better at this thing. Like whoever you are now is not who you started as. And over those years, you have molded and you have changed and you've become whoever you are, whether you're happy with that or not. And so why can't that happen again over the next few years? I'll be quiet now.
We want you to talk. That's why you're a guest. Stop doing that.
I'm normally the host, so I'm not used to asking the questions.
So one of the other things I wanted to touch on was this year you worked. Was it this year you worked with me? Or last year? Jesus, time's gone.
I don't know what time is. Last year I think it was.
Last year you worked with me as a client because you wanted to get a bit better with your eating habits and
10 out of 10.
And since then I've also worked with a lot of authors through your group. And one of the main things that stood out from it is that as authors, you get to the afternoon and your body crashes. You get tired, you get headaches, you lose your creativity, you lose that moment.
So my sister thought, let's record a podcast in the afternoon.
No, because we got past it. So one of the things that I work on with all of these people and people that aren't authors, a lot of people get that afternoon crash, is the fact that you're not eating regularly through the day. A lot of people have their lunch at 12 and they don't have their dinner till 6. So it is not a surprise that come 3-4 o'clock, your body is hungry, your blood sugar levels are low, and you feel that mental block of whatever it is, whether it's writing or whether it's work or whatever you're doing. And I just wanted to kind of touch upon how changing that helped you in what you do.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Like I was crashing hard, and like there are some days where I'm a bit lazy, and that does still happen. But I'm better equipped now to deal with it when that does happen. So, like for me, it sometimes comes down to two things. It's either nutrition. I know that I haven't eaten enough in that day, in which case, like I rectify that. I give myself like a little bit of a break while I eat something to, try and restore some of that. And then also it might be a case of, I've fried my brain and I've worked really, really hard in the morning. Today being a perfect example, I've done a lot of sort of planning and big thinking on what to do next year. And so I got to, 1:30, 2 o'clock, got into the next step, and I went, I'm gonna have to do this tomorrow because it's too cognitive, it's too heavy. And I think one of the most important things to recognize with people is that this crash is not uncommon. Like it is very, very universal as just a way that a lot of people sort of energy levels fluctuate throughout the day. That's like, if you think back to school, it was always the afternoons where you kind of like sat there with your friends just bored and sleepy because you've been running around at lunch, you've eaten, like you're kind of having a bit of a post-lunch crash.
At the clock, like, please be home time.
yeah. But I think one of the most things that is helpful is just identifying that is a pretty normal thing. And once you understand like when to expect something, and like, you gave me sort of tools on how to deal with that, overcome that. Number one, drinking more water, which I know this anyway, but like the lesson will always have to be relearned. Like you go through phases of life where you just slip on stuff. Like for me, this year has been very much slipping on a lot of habits and things like that. So like you don't beat yourself up about it. You just take your time and try and fix it and get back to where you are again. But yeah, it's a thing that is, I wouldn't say easily overcome, but you can definitely do things to take advantage of that. And I'm sure that you cover a lot of that with the people that you work with.
And so we haven't had any male guests on here yet. You are our first male guest.
What?
You're our first guest, actually.
He's the first guest, isn't
what?
he?
That's disgusting.
But like one of the things I've noticed from listening to other podcasts is there's a lot of talk about how females struggle.
Today. I'm sorry. Go on.
How females struggle with body image and confidence and relationships with food and all of those things. And we just wanted to know, have you ever struggled with your body image and body confidence? Or have you had friends or people that you know that have struggled with it?
I don't think there's anybody that I know that hasn't in some way struggled with body image. I've been in relationships with people who they have very high metabolisms and so they struggle to put on weight, and then I've been on the other side of people that they put on weight very easy and find it difficult to take off. And like myself, I mean I struggle with fluctuating weight a lot. One to be conscious of is not to kick myself or reprimand myself from that unless I know that I'm specifically making really bad choices. So at the minute, and this is kind of weight related, but also a little bit not, like like my sleep has been terrible because of because of my habits with social media. And so I've made steps to fix that. At the minute, I weigh probably more than I have in my whole life. Partly because I've been going to the gym and building some muscle, but also partly because it's been a really tough personal year for me. Like there have been some big things that have happened this year that have taken their toll on me, and so although I am in the shape that I'm in, and I'm not saying that it's a good or a bad thing, like I'm fine with how I am at the minute, like I really am. I'm very, very aware that my body at the minute tells the story of what this year has been, and it has supported me to get through what I needed to do. And there have been times in my life where things have been less intense, work-wise, personal-wise, in which I've been able to pay attention to my body, like the parkour stuff. Like one of the things I actually loved about parkour was it was fitness with fun. Like it was just hanging out with friends, and just that was a huge part of it. Like that was it. I got very fit by accident, which I'm sure people love to hear. But then there have been times like during COVID where I got back into my running habit and I was running every day and kind of lost weight there. But ultimately, like my body is looking after me and I'm able to fully move and fully function, and I don't really have many complaints apart from like a bit of finger pain that is being dealt with. And I'm 31, which isn't old. I get that. It's also not young. And so my body is supporting me and doing what I need to do. And like I could sit and be really peed off for the fact that I've got extra roles and things than I used to, but I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, what, this year has been like very, very trialing, and so I focused on many other things because I've had to. And at some point when that eases up, I'll be able to focus on bringing that back down. I'm sure, because primarily food is one of the go-to comforts that we have. And it's not something that we consciously do. Like I was eating very, very cleanly, and then sort of things ramped up. And suddenly I'm like eating packets of biscuits and things again, and the way it's going on. But like sometimes you need that, and sometimes you need those phases to seek comfort in one way to get you through something that's quite difficult. And one of the things that I've been really, really trying to work on over the last couple of years is trying to identify all the different sections of your life. And so I'll see if I can quickly pull it up here, because I've got this up the other day. It was like I pieced this together. It's not yet available anywhere, but it's something I'm working on, which is
this exclusive.
This is exclusive, yeah. I've kind of taken the idea from someone else, but kind of adapted it more for my own needs. And so I've got a thing called the check-in matrix, or it's going to be an author check-in matrix. And essentially, it's like a scoring system that I give myself based on a few different pieces of criteria. And the idea, before I kind of like list off what some of the things are, the idea that being like, you can be super low in one, but you can't be super low in two.
Okay.
Or if you are, try and pick one of them to work on. So it's almost like a scoring system to try and assess which areas of your life are like doing really, really well and which ones might need a bit of improving. And so the areas that I've got on here are broadly, like I've got a general section, health, social, authorship, obviously that's my business, and then outlook. And then they're broken down into, and I can give you this list to, well, once it's, because I'm looking at producing this, I can give you a version of this because it might be handy for you to give to your guys. But under general, it's, so the idea would be you'd rate each of these categories on a scale of 1 to 10. So under general, we've got mood, gratitude, mindfulness, joy, new experiences, and finances. Because absolutely, if your money is crap, like it affects everything else. If it's fantastic, like it affects everything else. Under health, I've got me time, hydration, nutrition, exercise, morning hygiene, evening hygiene, sleep, going outside, and new experience. Oh, I've got new experiences twice. Ignore that last one. It's a work in progress. Under social, I've got family, friends, and partnerships. Under authorship, insert, whatever your creative or business endeavors are. Creation, self-development, reading, publishing, and marketing. And in outlook, what scale of 1 to 10, how do I feel about the present? How do I feel about the future? And by filling that in and ranking it, I can see where I'm the lowest. And so I can kind of focus in and go, okay, this needs improvement. And the idea being like each week, each month, I kind of try and lift that a little bit each time. Some may fall, that's fine. But it's just going to be a balancing act. You can't have everything at a 10 all the time. You have to take it and leave it as to wherever life pushes you.
I think that's something you've struggled with, isn't it?
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I think that's also very applicable to a lot of people, especially around Christmas and New Year's and stuff, that their social is most likely going to be very high at the moment. And because of that, their health, like exercise, nutrition might be a bit lower. And it will be like that, but probably come January, it will even out a bit more because it's just the time of year. And it is such an important thing to say that, you're not always going to be 100% on everything. It is such a give and take. And like, yeah, I've had a bit of a year like that where I've had a lot of things I've had to prioritize, which meant that a lot of other things got lower down. And I think it is important that actually you just have to have that mindset that it's okay to be like that.
Yes.
And a similar thing, like I have weighed the most I have probably this year, but my mindset's changed so much, I guess similar to you, Daniel, that kind of like you're acceptable of that and you just know that eventually it will even out in the future.
Yeah. So much of it is just being aware of where you're at, and taking that time. It's that sort of that moment of silence, the reflection to stop and go, okay, where am I right now? What could I improve, and what is doing really well? And you will be very hard pressed, and I would probably argue it's impossible to find anyone that would fit a 10 in every single one of those boxes. Like, even whether you're talking about it, whether you're not, like someone is struggling with something. Even if you think someone's like the happiest in the world, they could be at a 3 for all you know.
Yeah, no matter what you see on social media.
Yes, absolutely.
So again, this podcast is coming out in a new year. It's a typical time where a lot of people will be thinking they can 100% everything. It's a fresh slate. They're starting again. It's the new year. They're going to try and make sure that this is their best year. How do you maintain expectations and set realistic goals going into a new year?
Oh man, it's so hard because there's an inherent social elevation of excitement at goals. Like it gets this time of year and everyone's suddenly like, next year is going to be so different and everything's going to be amazing, and oh my god, it's just going to be 10 times better than this year. And then all the people that said that in 2019, what happened? Kablow, like the world shut. And then like I said it last year and then got COVID over Christmas, and then things have happened this year. And just in case people are wondering, I'm fine, everything's okay. It's just been a very challenging year, as it happens in life. And yeah, so like, I mean, the best I'd recommend is really taking some moments to reflect, and try and work out where you are. I think kind of that's a theme within this, is establish where you're at right now and what you want. Something that I've done over the last couple of days is I've gone back through my calendar for just to look at everything I've done this year, to kind of take stock of what I've enjoyed, things that have kind of drained a lot of my energy, made a list out of that of people that I've seen that I didn't really want to see, and just taking it from there, so I can kind of learn from this year and see what I want to do more of next year and what I want to do less of. And then I take that information and I go and I look at what it is that I want to accomplish in life. And it might be a bit different to, because the fact I run my own business, like a lot of it applies to that, as opposed to, if you're working in the day job, it might be a bit different. But then I'll kind of take stock of what I want. And I do a bit of blue sky thinking. I do think sort of big and think like, well, what if this happened? What if this happened? And then the key words you mentioned being realistic, how do you put that into place? And part of making realistic goals is knowing yourself very, very well. Part of making realistic goals is making mistakes. And I think that something that a lot of people shouldn't punish themselves for is for making goals that they don't meet because they got too excited in the moment. Because two big bits of information come from that. Number one is that you have made progress in some direction towards the thing that you wanted, even if you didn't hit that target. I see it a lot in the author life where people are like, I wanted to write 50,000 words this month and I only wrote 48,000. I'm like, yeah, but that's nearly 50, but it's not 50.
A lot of words.
Yeah, but you started with 0. Like, yeah, it's progress. And so don't beat yourself up about that. But another thing that I learned from someone a couple of years ago that had a really big impact on me, is if you go for a goal and you get halfway there and you suddenly go, actually, like this isn't for me, like I don't want this, that can feel like a failure. And it's really not, because we live a life in which we are surrounded by millions of choices. And I'd rather know confidently that I now don't want that thing, and so can look elsewhere, rather than kind of leaving that as an open door and going like, maybe one day. Like I had the opportunity to write with another author in like what could have been a very, very big selling series. And I got sort of about 100 pages into it. And I messaged her and I just went like, oh, I'm really sorry. Like I can't, this isn't for me. It's not bringing me joy. Like I'm not like, I don't think I'm doing a good job with this. And I felt really bad. And that was one of the things she said to me was like, well, now you know for definite that this isn't for you. And I was like, that is such a wizened way of saying what this was, rather than getting paid off and being like, well, you promised me this. It's like, well, now you know it's not for you.
Yeah.
And so just being gentle with yourself. I think it's always going to be difficult to be fully realistic, because if you are 100% realistic, you might be underplaying
you don't push yourself.
Achieve exactly. But then if you go too big, you're then putting yourself at a disadvantage because you're creating something that you won't meet. But I think just try your best to fit where you can, and then probably go into smart goals a little bit. So if you're going to set yourself a goal, don't just say like, I want to lose weight or I want to eat better. Like, what is the practical way to make that? How do you measure it? Like, you can't fix something or you can't analyze something unless it's measured. And so if I want to, for example, exercise more, rather than going, I'm going to exercise more, I will say, I'm going to go to the gym once a week. I'm being specific on when it's going to happen. I'm measuring it by, how many times that's going to happen through the month. It's achievable, because, it's once a week. Come on, like who can't go once a week, even if it's for 5-10 minutes? Realistic, absolutely. Time bound, again, like once a week. And as kind of mentioned, probably worth also saying for how long. Like I will go for 5, 10, 15, but that's totally up to you. But get specific. The more general, the more sort of lofty they are, just the harder they are to achieve. And in my process at the minute of making goals and things for next year, I have got some goals that are at the minute a bit just sort of like wishy-washy. Like I will write more books. That's not one of them. I definitely don't need to. I will write more books. But then I'm going to go back to that before year end and break that down and make it specific and make it measurable. And because there are so many different facets in my life, I then have to look at them all and weigh which ones are most important. So I would also recommend probably picking like for the year, like 3 maximum.
Yeah.
Like by all means do other things as well, but like maximum of 3, because people go like 10, 15, 20 goals and things. It's like, that's way too many. And the other annoying thing is, because I like the sound of my own voice, the other thing that I discovered from a good friend of mine who I've written a few things with, Luke Condor, is he will lay out goals for the year, but then very, very specifically put in 3-month reviews. And those 3 months are the ones that he really focuses on, because again, we live in a world that is so fast moving and things change so quickly that by the time those 3 months are up, it's very likely that some of your goals have changed. And that's okay. Just like readjust, look at somewhere else. I often kind of think of goals as like you're adrift on just a sea at night and you've just got a North Star. And that's what your goals are. Like it's giving you a direction to go on your boat. And sometimes you'll find that, oh, actually that star's not getting me closer to my island. Okay, I need to go to this one because, things have changed, like the sky moves, things happen, life happens. And so, yeah, just understand as well that goals aren't concrete. Which is kind of annoying in itself, because I think that we always think that, once we set a goal, that's the thing we must achieve. Life hinges on this. It doesn't. There'll be more goals in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we've touched on, isn't it? And again, on a previous episode, is that we've both been known to set goals in the gym, like, oh, I will do this, or I'll be able to run this far. And then something else might get in the way, like with your matrix thing you're on about. Like something might happen in my personal life that stops me from doing that thing. I might injure myself, so I can't do that thing. But also everyone sets their hopes on that end goal of what the goal is. But by the time you get there, you want to progress it. Like I've done a 5K run. I want to do 10K now. Like if you're always trying to get to the end, like you forget that there isn't an end point of goals. The whole point is they're pushing you towards something better.
Yeah. It's a journey. It's all a journey. I mean, I literally got a tattoo recently, which is kind of like the Ouroboros, which is the snake eating itself, and the infinity symbol, to symbolize just the ebb and flow, just the constant nature of what it is that we do, and that there isn't an end point. Like it will just keep going this way. Whenever like friends of mine or even myself like are in sort of dark moments, one of the phrases that I always come back to is "this too shall pass," because it will. Like dark things have happened, things get better, things will happen again. Like that's just the nature of life. And I think that one very, very important thing for people to grasp as well is this idea of trying to understand the difference between procrastination and resistance. No, procrastination and sort of legitimate reasons not to be doing the thing that they said they're going to do. So, for example, those mornings where you're up and you're like, well, I need to run today at 9 o'clock because that's what I've told myself that I'll do. I'm not feeling it. Like, you identifying what that feeling is a skill in itself. Understanding whether it's you kind of procrastinating and going like, oh, I'm just being quote lazy, or whether you're ill and legitimately you shouldn't be out running. And a fantastic resource that I'll recommend that it's centered mostly around creativity, but again, like, I think the general principles apply to stuff like this, is a book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. And it is a book that I read probably twice a year just to remind me of this principle of, like, he calls it resistance, and overcoming resistance to achieve the things that you want to achieve.
Yeah, I have another book recommendation that I guess is more psychology based, but it's called The Chimp Paradox.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the similar thing of sort of like there's two different versions of you, and it's like the ego and the id, and and it's completely conflicting, but it's such a good read and kind of helps to explain the thoughts and the intrusiveness and all this stuff. So yeah, two book recommendations for you if you
But yeah, I mean, if there's one thing that I in all of my nattering that I think I really, really do want to get across is, like, everything changed for me when I started to understand my mind. And not just my mind, but kind of just how mind works. And for context, I pretty much failed my psychology A levels. But they were teaching like Bobo the chimp and all this other crap. And it's basically psychology in colleges. Remember this date and this person. And also psychology in colleges, we think this happened because of this, but also there's evidence to say that it didn't. So we don't really know. But if you can understand how a human mind works, understand your relationship to other people, and then understanding your relationship to yourself, like, everything unlocks and it just becomes so much easier is the wrong word. It's more accessible and the steps are there to overcome. So mind, just top of the board for me, is just mind.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. I mean, I study psychology, so I would agree.
I hope it's different to how college was, because I feel like I might have offended you.
No, you're doing a master's in it, so it couldn't have been that
bad. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I would 100% agree. And just going back to New Year goals as well, I have literally just dug mine up that I set myself last year. And I think I set myself 2, 4, so 8 I set myself, and I've managed 2.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them is just because a year is a very long time.
Very much changes in a year.
Exactly. And half of them I just couldn't do because opportunities came up that, like, I didn't want to say no to. And it just meant that time constraint wise, I just couldn't do half of them. It just was not realistic at that time. So
what is it people say? People overestimate what they can achieve in a year, but underestimate what they can in 10.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to finish the podcast for today. Thank you very much for being a guest.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really fun.
If people did enjoy your natter and the sound of your voice, do you want to just link any of your social media so that people can follow you if they want to?
Yeah, so I mean, best place to find me is I'm at danielwillcocks.com if you want to look at my fiction and all the things that I do with my books, or if you want to look at author stuff and get a bit of coaching from me and all that kind of thing, go on to activatedauthors.com. You'll find info about all the podcasts and everything else I'm up to over there.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a new year. We're going to set realistic goals this time. If you've already started and you've set yourself something really high, maybe sit and reassess it, think smartly about it. Like, is it realistic? Are you going to achieve it? Is it measurable? All of those things. And yes, we will continue on the next episode.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye, everyone.
Bye.